Welcome back to our channel Preen of Paradise. So guys, as you might be aware of the fact that I along with my husband usually create content and videos on travel, lifestyle and beauty, but this time I'm going to share something special and unique with you. This special and unique is about my personal and professional life. So I have been a permanent resident of Canada since 2019. So in this video, I'll be sharing with you the end-to-end process of applying permanent residency of Canada along with my timeline, my journey and my experiences. On top of that, I did everything on my own without hiring any agent, and that too guys with bare minimum cost. So guys, I obtained permanent residency of Canada in just a matter of 4 months, and that too at the age of 26. So friends, if you are new to this channel, please ensure that you subscribe to this channel because I'm going to share with you a lot about the immigration process, the TRV, the spousal sponsorship process, and also how I got almost 2 job offers from Canadian MNCs, that too while residing in India itself. So there is much more coming in the future, so stay tuned guys. So let's get started now. So guys, let me just give you a brief about my background. So I'm a convent educated and I did my bachelor's in business administration, and after that I pursued MBA in HR and finance. Besides MBA, I have also done MCom, and that is through correspondence, and apart from that I have also done CS, which is company secretary course. So I had a double masters when I applied for PR, but usually they consider only one masters, and that too which was my regular one, which is MBA. So I only applied the application inputting the details of just my MBA. Coming to my experience, I had around 2.5 years of experience. I started my career with a US MNC as a business analyst, and I had that experience for a year, and after that I got a transition into financial analyst role, and that too in a US based MNC. So the idea of getting the permanent residency of Canada seeded in my mind back in November 2017. At that point of time, I thought that I want to immigrate to a different country. At that point of time, I thought that I have heard stories from a lot of people that, you know, they immigrate to Canada and change their lives for betterment. So why I shouldn't try for it? And I thought, okay, if I don't even get it, let's just have an option B in life. So that was kind of a spontaneous decision for me. But I think to a certain extent, it's fruitful as well. So I started gathering information about the PR process, the timeline, the documents required for it from different sources, be it the internet or the local agents. Unfortunately, during those times, things weren't pretty easy to find the exact information and the correct information from these sources, because there wasn't too much content on YouTube as well as on Google. But I did my research. I went through the CIC website and contacted with the agent to gather as much information as I could during that time. Overall, I won't say that the process is a cakewalk, but it's not a rocket science either. So if I can do on my own, you can also do it. So I have jotted down 12 simple steps in obtaining the PR of Canada. These are the 12 primary and basic steps in obtaining your permanent residency of Canada and realizing your dream to live your life in Canada. So guys, the first and foremost step is to check for your eligibility. So whatever the trends of CRS score, the cutoff is going on, you have to check your score against it. Now how to ascertain your CRS score? It's very simple guys. You need to check out the website of cic.gc.ca and go to the comprehensive ranking score system, where you can input all your details, be it your age, your qualification, your work experience, if you have any blood relations in Canada, if you have any foreign experience or foreign education, that particularly from Canada, and your language proficiency test, which is IELTS for English and TEF for French. So guys, now you might be wondering that what if I haven't even given the IELTS test, because I'm just going to check my eligibility at this stage. And that's absolutely fine. What you can do is, when you log into the website and input all your details, just put the golden score of IELTS, which is 8,777, 8 in listening and 7 in rest of the parameters, which is speaking, writing and reading. So you can input this score. This is called CLB 9, which is Canadian Language Benchmark number 9. I'm going to give the link in the description box where you can actually check your CRS score. So the second step in the process is to get your education credential assessment, which is ECA. Now there are several providers of ECA. The most popular one is WES, or you can also say WES. What you have to do is you need to obtain your transcripts from your respective universities. So like in my case, I started gathering my transcripts from my bachelor's degree university, and I also obtained transcript from my master's program. And there is usually a cost involved in obtaining these transcripts. So depending on the university, they might charge you on the basis of the semester. They might charge you around 500 rupees or whatever the currency be in your respective countries. They're gonna charge you for the transcripts. And once you get the transcripts with the university stamp on it, and which will also showcase all your marks, your CGPA or your percentage, and then you are good to go. You need to send it to WES, which is in Canada, and again you have to incur some charges of around 1500 to 2000 rupees for courier services. So the cost of obtaining ECA from WES was around, I think, 13 to 14,000 at that point of time. And you also need to add on the courier charges, which I have already told you, around 1500 to 2000. And then on top of that, there are the charges of obtaining the transcripts from your universities. So overall, we can assume that for the entire process, it might cost you around 20,000 to get your ECA done. So this entire process usually take around a month. It can even take less time. So guys, in my case particularly, I got my ECA in just a matter of 3 weeks. And both my bachelor's and master's degree were at par according to the Canadian benchmark of education. So guys, the importance of WES lies in the fact that you might be having your education from a different country, but the Canada government want to assess that whether your education background is aligning with their parameters of education. So that's the whole crux of obtaining the ECA from WES. So I have already told you about the cost factor and the timeline about it. It roughly takes around 2-3 weeks to a month. So now coming to the third step, which is highly important, is your IELTS, or you can say the language proficiency test, because it includes both IELTS for English and TEF for French. It's good if you know French, because you're gonna get additional scores points for your French test as well. So while preparing for IELTS, your major goal should be to obtain the golden score of IELTS, which is 8,777, and we also call it CLB 9, which is Canadian Language Benchmark of 9. And guys, you really need to work hard on it. Don't take it for granted. There are people who say that, okay, we are good at English, we have been convent educated throughout our lives, so this should not be the case. Don't take it for granted. And I'll tell you something about my personal scenario, that I was so adamant that I'm only going to get single shot of IELTS in my life, and I wanted to work really hard for it. When I started preparing for IELTS, which was like in late December, because I did my WES in December. So I forgot to mention earlier that I did my WES in the month of December 2017. And when you are even waiting for your ECA, don't waste that time. Utilize that time in preparing for your IELTS. And make sure that you are preparing for IELTS General and not the academic one. Academic one is for students. The general one is for obtaining your permanent residency. So I appeared for IELTS test in the month of February, and the results usually are out within 13-14 days, which is pretty quick. And there are 4 sections in the IELTS test. I'm going to create a separate video on IELTS, what's the process of the IELTS and how you can obtain the golden score. So thankfully guys, I got the CLB 9 in IELTS, I got the golden score, and even actually more than that. So overall I had band 8 in the very first attempt of IELTS. So coming to the fees factor, at that point of time it was around 12,000 back in 2018 in February, but now it has increased to 14,700 rupees. So guys, now the next step, when you are done with your ECA and your IELTS General and you have got the considerable CRS score, now the major step is to enter the express entry pool, which is under the category of FSW, Federal Skilled Worker Program. By this I mean that you have to create a profile in the IRCC website in their portal under FSW category and input all your details like age, education, marital status, your IELTS score, your language proficiency test, your foreign education and foreign experience, any blood relation that you have in Canada, everything you're gonna enter, and then you're gonna get your actual CRS score, and then you have to apply. And then finally you need to submit your profile in the express entry, and tada, you just have to wait for the ITA, which is invitation to apply, and that leads to my next step, which is obtaining an ITA. So if everything goes well and you have got the reasonable score, for example, my CRS score was actually 447, but unfortunately I missed the first cutoff because that was higher than my score, and I think it was 456. But within a couple of days, because usually ITA comes every 15 days or 20 days, so, and just after 15 days there was another cutoff out, and this time the minimum score required was 446. So I had 447 score, which was higher than the bare minimum cutoff, and that's why I got the invitation to apply. Now actually the real task arises, because now you have to gather all the information and obtain all the required documents. And the first and foremost in this case would be your medicals and PCC, which is my next step in the PR process, is actually to obtain the police clearance certificate, which you usually get from the Passport Seva Kendra. You don't have to get it from any police station or something. You just have to book your appointment in the Passport Seva Kendra in the nearest city, and usually within a week's time they provide you your PCC. But in my case actually I got it upfront, so then and there only they provided me with the police clearance certificate. So this process was pretty quick for me. Now coming to the medicals, you can only get yourself tested through these authorized healthcare centers. It's usually the Max Hospital, it could be the nearest one in your city. You can book your medicals, whatever slot you get, whatever the open slots are there, you have to book your medical test and your appointment for that day. And you don't need to be in the fasting mode to get your medical test done. So this medical test will take you around 3-4 hours, even it can take more than that, because usually these centers are loaded with lots and lots of people who are there for their medical checkups, usually for visa processing. And the authorized center is gonna share the medical report directly with the IRCC. They are not going to provide you the test results, but they are going to send it straight away to the IRCC, and within a matter of few weeks you will be able to see that your medical results are updated in the portal of IRCC. Now coming to this very important step in your PR process is submitting your visa application along with the documents. So there are a hell lot of documents required in the PR process. It's a tedious process and a lengthy process, of course. Lots of paperwork is required. Now you have to first of all collect the proof of funds, which includes your savings, your bank account statements, balance statement from your respective bank accounts. So you actually need to show around $13,000. This is for one person. So it's actually 13,310 Canadian dollars, which has to be there in your bank account, which is roughly 8 lakh rupees you need to show in your liquid assets. That can be in the form of your savings account and FDs or RDs or other financial instruments which are liquid in nature. So this is your proof of funds. So guys, now you must be thinking that it's really a whooping amount that you need to show in your funds, and in no case you should indulge yourself in a practice where you borrow money from your friends and family and you are channelizing a hefty amount in your bank account. So it should not be like that, because they actually need your 6 months bank statement from your financial institutions. So I think it's not a great idea to actually borrow funds and channelize those heavy amount in a single shot in your bank account. So in my case it was completely my savings from my job. I didn't borrow any money from my parents or my family because my parents told me that this is your decision. You are actually the owner of your life and for your fate and destiny. So if you are working on your dream, it should be your money actually. And I think that was a great decision on their part, because that actually motivated me to pursue my career in the best possible way, and I saved this entire amount on my own. So guys, if you are at a certain stage where you think that you are 25 or 26, how you gonna manage funds, who gonna pay you for your immigration fees and everything, so don't worry guys, be confident, and you can actually create that much of money and amount with your perseverance and hard work. Along with these documents, make sure you have filled all the application forms thoroughly and signed it as well, and then attach it to the portal of the IRCC along with all the documents. So besides the application forms, proof of funds we have already covered, and then you have your ECA, your transcripts, your language proficiency test, which is IELTS and TEF in case you have it, and then your passport, basically copy of passport and digital photograph, and travel history if you have one, your marriage certificate in case if you are married, or any other document whatsoever. Like if you have certain properties under your name, you also need to showcase that. And you also have to show the ITR, the last 3 income tax return from your country, and you also need to produce references from your past employers. So wherever you have worked in the past, you need to provide the references from all those employers. Overall, once you get the ITA, you need to buck up yourself to gather all these documents as soon as possible, because these documents are really time consuming, and you have to make sure that you are quick in this process. Otherwise, you may be delaying the PR process on your own. So in my case, particularly for references, I already created the format of that, wherein I mentioned the title of my job and the working hours I'm utilizing per week, the salary I'm obtaining, and also if I'm a permanent employee or the casual or the temporary employee. So I was a permanent one, and I entered all the details along with my job responsibilities, because during that point of time there was the concept of knock code also. So my knock was actually related to financial analyst profile, and that's why I jotted down all the job responsibilities and duties depending on the financial analyst knock. And my employers were really kind, and they provided me the reference letter in no time. They just stamped it and signed it, and I was good to go. I had all the required documents with myself, and with this I was able to submit my application in the month of April, and within few weeks I got my AOR. You will get your AOR, which is your application reference number, and with this you can be tension free and hassle free that now your file is in the hands of the IRCC officials, and they're gonna process it, they're gonna check all the details, they're gonna verify your credentials, whatever you have provided, and now they're gonna proceed further with that. So they're gonna check your background, your eligibility, whether you meet the requirements or not, whether your documents are in line with their requirements, your police clearance certificates, etc. They're going to assess everything at this point of time. So guys, the next step involved is getting your decision made on your PR application and receiving the golden email, which is the PPR. So you usually get an email for your passport request, and that is why we call it a golden email, where the IRCC actually asks you to submit your passport in the nearest VFS center. So what you have to do is you need to book an appointment in the VFS center, and again it's gonna take the entire day, because the VFS centers are usually loaded with people. It's very crowded all the time. You need to submit your passport there, and then you're gonna wait for a few days. So the next step is to actually get your visa granted from IRCC. So you're gonna get your passport back to your home address from VFS center, and your visa will be stamped on it along with the COPR, the physical COPR document, which we also call the landing papers. COPR is your confirmation of permanent residency. So guys, this is the time for euphoria. You actually need to embrace your permanent residency now that you are now officially the permanent resident of Canada. You are a confirmed permanent resident, and the COPR will be served as the landing paper, and you can say kind of an identity card in Canada. So unless and until you get your PR card, this COPR will work as an identity card for yourself to open the bank accounts and obtain your SIN number and all these things. So as I've already told you that in the month of April I got my ITA, and just within 4 months, that is in August, I was able to obtain passport in my hands with the Canadian visa stamped on it, and along with that I had COPR. Time for the celebration, guys. The final step in actually becoming a Canadian permanent resident is to land in Canada. So guys, it's mandatory for you to land to Canada in order to become a permanent resident, because then only they're gonna provide you the PR card, on which they will also mention the date when you actually become the permanent resident. That is the day when you land to Canada. And now when you get your visa stamped in your hands, and you have already got your COPR, so the time that you have in actually landing to Canada depends on when you gave the medical exam. So now to make it easier for you, let's give my example. So I gave my medical test, which was an upfront medical test, in the month of April. I got my passport stamped in the month of August. So I had around 7 to 8 months to actually land to Canada. Now depending on your case and your scenario, you need to figure out that how many buffer months you have, and then accordingly you can plan your trip. So guys, now coming to the cost factor, if I have to calculate for my particular case, it will be 20,000 for getting the ECA from WES, and approximately 12,000 for IELTS General, So it will be around 32,000, and then 55,000 for PR application of Canada, and after that around 5,000 rupees for medical examination during that point of time. So overall it was around 92,000 that I incurred during that period of time to obtain my permanent residency. So I think in these days also, within rupees 1 lakh you'll be able to obtain your permanent residency, and you don't have to incur any additional charges of hiring an agent for this process, as this process is lengthy for sure, but it's not a rocket science or something which is extremely difficult beyond your control or beyond your expertise. So it's easy in a way that all the documents, all the information lies within yourself. So you just need to provide all the information, all the paperwork done, and you are good to go. So guys, this was the end-to-end process of applying the Canadian PR on your own. I wish that it will be helpful for your PR immigration process. And if you find this video informative and inspiring, please do consider subscribing to our channel, because I'm going to create a lot of content on Canadian immigration, be it the temporary resident visa or the spousal sponsorship visa, or how to obtain your first job in Canada, how to build your resume as per the Canadian standards, and much more. And I wish you all the luck for your immigration process, and my good wishes are with you, my viewers. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions regarding the immigration process, please put it in the comment section. I would love to answer them. Take care and goodbye.